Hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome back to the show, the place where the headlines are unhinged, the stories are heavy, and real life is somehow happening in between. This week's episode is a lot, and I don't say that lightly. We are starting with the kind of news that makes you stop mid scroll and say, wait, what? A human skull donated to a Goodwill because apparently we are now freestyling reality, and then we head to Wisconsin, where wild turkeys have decided to run the neighborhood, chasing mail carriers and terrorizing the locals like tiny feathered crime bosses. But then we shift because this episode isn't just weird or funny, it's also devastating. But it's okay. This is how we roll, right? We are taking a deep dive into the murder of Livy Lewis, a 19-year-old with a future full of promise whose life was cut short in a story filled with red flags, jealousy, abuse, and choices that still make no sense at all. This isn't a sensationalized retelling. This is a reminder of how dangerous love can become when control, violence, and silence are allowed to coexist together. And finally, because life doesn't pause after the heavy stuff, we close today's episode with a mom moment, navigating the vulnerability of going out in public bald for the first time and emotional weight of body changes you didn't ask for, and the chaos of raising a 16-month-old who refuses to give up bottles, but is already learning his ABCs and numbers like he's got places to go. So, this episode is messy, it's emotional, it's funny, it's inappropriate in some places, and serious where it counts. So take a breath, settle in, and let's get into it. Let's kick things off in Chelsea, Michigan, where someone thought donating old clothes was a great time to slip in a human skull. Yup, a real life skull. According to police, employees at the Goodwill on South Main Street were sorting donations when they unwrapped what they thought was like a Halloween prop until it wasn't. Turns out, yeah, it's probably human. The skull was sent off to the University of Michigan's anthropology department for further analysis, which could take up to 90 days. That's 3 months of scientists going, is this medieval or is it ancestral? Or is it Marvin from upstairs? Like while they poke around and try and figure out like what's going on with this skull. Now, here's the juicy part. Police have surveillance footage showing a mystery donator, a woman in her like late 40s, early 50s with brown hair. She was dropping off the bag that contained the skull. They're trying to track her down right now and figure out whether this is, a masquerade gift or like some kind of accidental mix up, or if she's just been binge watching true crime podcasts and I don't know, just took out all of her Halloween decor and we just don't know. And get this, a second woman, possibly the driver, was spotted with her leaving in a four-door SUV. So now law enforcement is like playing their best like impression of daytime soap operas. Like, was it intentional, or did grandma just get fashionable and go into thrift donations? I don't know. Listen, donating old sweaters, cute. Donating Tupperware, practical. Donating a human skull, that's an invitation for DNA analysis and a dozen news emails. Girl, if you've got a skull in your closet, maybe just like keep it in the closet. I don't know. Folks online are absolutely living for this story. Reddit commenters are joking about everything from maybe it was grandma's Halloween stash, or please tell me they've been auctioning it on eBay now. One commenter even asked if detectives were checking to see if her husband still had his head attached. Honestly, same. So, yeah, that story is wild. And, just because apparently we just do all Midwest themed news stories, at least for the like most recent episodes, let's just kick it over to Wisconsin. In Janesville, residents aren't just dealing with the usual winter grind. They're they're getting chased down by a flock of fearless wild turkeys that have apparently decided humans are optional in the pecking order. These aren't your sweet backyard birds, you guys. These are territorial, feathered, Rufflian, out for mailman, cars, and children. Like they're road turkeys, is what I call them. You just see them everywhere on the road. And they're not small, you guys. Like, I don't know if you're from the Midwest, but like our road turkeys are like massive birds, okay? Just like in the wild doing their thing. So get this, one local resident captured video of the birds chasing down a postal worker like it was the final chase scene in a horror movie. And yes, the turkeys seem to think an 8-year-old kid was the perfect sprinting training partner in this case, because nothing says good morning like being hotly pursued by a velociraptor with feathers. It started all cute, and neighbors were like, "Oh, look at the wildlife," until a gang of gobblers began blocking traffic, causing minor fender benders, and turning school drop off into a Thanksgiving mile obstacle course. Jason Cotter, a wildlife biologist with the Wisconsin DNR, said that while the turkeys do tend to flock in winter, which cool, another thing to deal with. We had exploding trees the other week, and now we have wild turkeys. Um, they do show off a little bit of dominance. This group's energy is way above the norm. It's like they've been watching too many gangster movies and picking up turkey swagger as their vibe. And yes, local officials advise residents to make themselves look bigger, like I guess you would like a bear, by opening umbrellas, jackets, or honestly, full on cosplay as Sasquatch, just to discourage human turkey face offs. So, walk backwards while you retreat because nothing says dignity preserved like eye contact with an angry bird while moonwalking home. What a story, you guys. Yeah. So that's our current events section today. I just wanted to keep it short and sweet and, kind of lighten the mood before we get into our next segment. All right, folks, buckle up. This is one of those stories that starts off like Rule, good old Halloween weekend, and ends like a drama nobody asked to watch live. It's a tragedy, obsession, and questionable life choices all wrapped into one messy package. We are talking about the death of a 19-year-old Livy Lewis, a straight A student, a young woman with nursing aspirations, and a very dramatic string of events involving her ex boyfriend, Matthew Edgar. This is an episode I watched from the first 48 on Netflix. You can find this one on Netflix. I believe it was season 37. And yeah, so let me just break this down for you. It is early morning on October 31st, 2020. Hemphill, Texas, and a passerby spots a car on the side of the road. Inside of that car, Livy Lewis, shot in the neck, unresponsive, and nearby, a bloodied Matthew Edgar, curled up in the fetal position behind the vehicle like some sort of tragic mannequin claiming he doesn't remember how he got there. According to Edgar, the night began like many others, chilling on the porch, knocking back some whiskey, and then the next morning, the next thing he knows, he's waking up in an ambulance. No memories, classic blackout narrative. At the scene, police find some shoes, a hat, basically the accessories no one really wants in a murder investigation, and the rifle that would later be linked to the fatal shot that killed Livy Lewis. So let's break this down. Who was Livy Lewis? Let's not lose sight of the real person here. Livy was 19, a recent graduate, and headed for college with like high hopes of becoming a nurse. Not the kind of person you expect to end up on a headline like this. According to friends, she was kind, she was ambitious, and she was steady. Like the kind of kid who plans and has like vision boards. Like Livy was a sweet girl, ready to start life, and she had her life completely ahead of her. So Livy met Matthew back in 2019 when she was still a senior in high school, and he was, oh, wait for it, 23 years old and Married. Yes. That's like the first big red flag in this situation. They started a secret relationship full of the usual, like, don't tell anybody texts. And, that should have been the first clue that something was off. Edgar's marriage to Montana Bacall, the mother of his two children, was literally still legally intact when this whole secret relationship started. That's not a meet cute. That's a caution tape moment, you guys. But Liv, to her credit, ended it very quickly because she didn't want to become a homewrecker. But once Edgar divorced his wife, yup, he circled right back like a villain in a rom-com gone terribly wrong. First, Montana, the ex-wife, absolutely hated Liv, which that makes sense. And it was understandable if you think relationship drama, but then for reasons that will forever haunt text message archives, they became friends. Yes, that very clear danger love triangle narrative that should have had like exit signs blinking everywhere. So, now things with Edgar were reportedly just completely volatile. Texts from Livy show that he was physically abusive. He drank heavily, and she even sent her cousin a photo showing her like broken nose after one of these fights. That's the level of mess that should have, had an early exit strategy in place. But love, or whatever twisted thing was going on here, kept her there. She even moved in with him to help raise his children with Montana, like the baby mama, which screams like chaos in hindsight. But I guess she was just trying to do the noble thing at this point because she really loved Matthew. So, let's fast forward a little bit, I guess, into this relationship in the night of the incident. So we're going to fast forward to Halloween night. By 2:30 a.m., Livy and Montana, who are friends now, were at this like pre-Halloween party hosted by like some guy named Bobby. Meanwhile, Edgar was clearly simmering, perhaps fueled by jealousy and cheap whiskey, and lost it when he overheard that Livy might be spending the night with Bobby. Watching this documentary, okay, so these kids are what, 19, 20, like early 20s, mid 20s. If you watch this documentary, Bobby, like he's like an older dude, okay? Like definitely like looking like he's in his like late 30s, early 40s, either that or maybe he just had a rough upbringing. But just a side thought because it was really weird to me. Why is this like much older person hanging out with these young kids? I don't know. Maybe it's like a small town thing, but it didn't make any sense to me. But okay, back to the story. So, eyewitnesses say that Edgar started punching Montana's car like an unhinged cartoon villain, while Bobby tried to restrain him so Livy and Montana could escape this situation. At one point, Edgar was reportedly shouting, "I'm gonna kill y'all," which in retrospect was more grim foreshadowing. Montana fled towards Edgar's grandparents' house for safety, kids in the back seat and all. But Livy went somewhere else. And that's where the story dissolves into like sheer heartbreak. Around 3:22 a.m., Edgar texts Montana, "I'm leaving, better come get your kids." About 12 minutes later, he texts again, "I'm home. I got Livy's keys and her phone. She's dead." I'm sorry, what now? Montana, bafflingly, did not call 911, claiming she thought he was bluffing, or she just didn't believe it, which is like complete BS in my brain because I thought Livy was your bestie. But unless you were trying to get back with him, it's just like this, again, love triangle. But let that sink in for a second. A young woman's life was just announced via text message, and the person on the other end didn't immediately alert authorities. It's one of those decisions where you're left thinking, like, what were they thinking? Or more accurately, what weren't they thinking? So when patrols arrive, on the scene of the accident, Livy was already gone. Edgar was found on the ground behind the car. And mind you, this is about a little less than 3 hours later because this is at 6 a.m. But yeah, Matthew, he's found behind the car. He's bleeding. And they found his rifle nearby, later linked to the bullet inside of Livy's vehicle. At the hospital, Edgar told police that he had no idea what happened. He'd drunk an entire bottle of whiskey, fell asleep on his porch, and then bam, he wakes up in an ambulance. When detectives told him Livy was dead, he wept. But investigators weren't buying this Oscar worthy performance. DNA evidence showed a small drop of Livy's blood on Edgar's pants, which is like a tiny detail, but it is telling. Though his defense lawyer argued it couldn't prove when it got there. So, a classic courtroom dodging. So, now we fast forward to January 4th, 2022. Edgar's trial begins. But hold on. He is released on a $50,000 bond before it even started. A murder suspect free on bail. Yes, that's actually happening here in this situation. Then, just as the trial is ramping up, Edgar didn't show up. He let his ankle monitor battery die like a villain in a straight to DVD movie and then just vanished. The court, to his credit, continued the trial without him and found him guilty in his absence. Meanwhile, Livy's mom, Darcy Bass, turned into a one woman detective determined to find Matthew, plastering wanted posters all around town, hoping to see justice in her daughter's death. Nearly a year later, U.S. Marshals and local law enforcement found Edgar hiding in the woods, yards from his grandparents' home. His mother was there too, acting surprised, don't you say? On January 3rd, 2023, Edgar was formally sentenced to 99 years with the possibility of parole after 30. Long overdue, but at least justice was served. So, here's what this tangled story screams at you. Red flags aren't suggestions, they're warning signs. Ignoring them is like putting a kick me sign on your own back. Love triangles are messy, but murderers are irreversible. Drama isn't romance, it's danger. And most heartbreakingly, Livy was a life with plans, not just a case file. So if you're tuning in today thinking, wow, that was wild, yeah, wild, tragic, and entirely preventable in so many small ways. But let's be clear, this isn't just TV drama. It's a human life cut short and worth remembering with seriousness, not just shock value. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic abuse, help is available. You can contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799 SAFE or 7233. Or you can text START to 88788. Support is free, confidential, and available 24/7. All right, guys, welcome to my mom corner where vulnerability meets chaos and somehow we're still standing. I know that last segment was really heavy and we are just taking a hard pivot into a different direction because we are going on a ride today, but we are going to just cruise through to the end with positive vibes. So, let me start with me for a second. It's been a couple weeks of being bald, like actually bald. Not I'll wear a wig and pretend everything's fine bald, but this is my head now bald. And this week, I actually went out in public without a wig for the first time. Now, before anyone gets dramatic, yes, I did wear a beanie. It is winter. I'm brave, not reckless. Baby steps, people. But still, this was a moment for me. It was absolutely testing the waters, like dripping one emotional toe in and saying, oh, okay, is anyone staring at me? Are they whispering or does anyone genuinely not care as much as my anxiety brain thinks they do? And honestly, It was fine. Not easy, not magical, but fine. And that feels huge because when your body changes in a way that you didn't choose, every little step back into the world feels like, I don't know, like a quiet act of rebellion. So, yeah, beanie on, chin up, walking through just the streets. Like, I don't know why I said the streets. I'm not walking through the streets, but just like walking through the day, like, I'm doing this. Like, don't look at me, but also look at me, but don't. Growth, right, guys? Growth. So now let's pivot to the actual tiny human that's running my life right now. My son is 16 months old. 16. Like, excuse me. I swear I just gave birth, blink twice, and now we're basically filing taxes and asking for a snack every 7 minutes. And we are still trying to find the right cup for milk. If you're a parent, you already know where this is going. We are deep in the great bottle to cup transition, also known as why is this so hard and why does no one warn you about this? Because here's the thing. They don't tell you that every child is like wildly different. There is no magic cup that works for all the kids. There is no universal timeline. There is only like trial and error and a cabinet full of cups you swear you'll never buy again until you do. So, meanwhile, his bestie at daycare, who is younger than him, by a few months, is already like off the bottles, just casually sipping like a tiny hydrated king. And I'm over here like, cool, cool, cool. Like, love that for you, but please don't look at us. It's frustrating. Yeah, it's frustrating. It messes with your head. You start wondering like if you're behind, if you're doing it wrong, or missing some secret parenting memo that everyone else got and you didn't. I don't even know like if this has anything to do with the fact that he was breastfed for a year, or I don't even know. But here's the truth. And I need every parent listening to this to just like listen to me. It takes time, but it is normal. Some kids drop bottles like nothing, and some kids hold on for dear life. It doesn't mean anything about intelligence, independence, or your parenting at that. It just means that they're human, very small, very opinionated humans. And honestly, the amount of like trial and error is unreal. Like one cup is too fast and one cup is too slow and one cup is offensive. I thought Bluey and Bingo were his jam, but apparently not. And then one cup is acceptable on like Tuesdays or only during a full moon. Um, it's just gotten ridiculous, you guys. Parenthood is just like vibes and experiments, I feel like. And then now, before you think we're struggling across the board, let me just brag for a second because this child of mine is just blowing my mind. He's learning his ABCs and he's also recognizing numbers already. Like, excuse me, sir, you can't even drink from like a straw cup and you're out here casually absorbing the alphabet. All right. It's the audacity for me. Watching him learn in real life is honestly wild. One day he's just like a baby, and the next he's pointing at letters and, he's got places to be. So it's that constant like whiplash of parenting, frustration, and pride, like living side by side. So, yeah, this segment is really about our patience with ourselves, with our kids, with our bodies, and with just going through the process. Baby steps count, beanies count, sippy cup failures are, yeah, those absolutely count. And if you're in a season where everything feels like it's taking longer than it should, you're not behind. You're just human, and so is your kid. All right, my moment over. Let's just take a deep breath and probably buy another cup we swear will be the one. That's going to do it for today's episode. If this one left you feeling rattled, a little heavy, or quietly reflective, you're not alone. Some stories are just meant to sit with us. The kind that remind us how fragile life is, how loud red flags can be when we choose to hear them, and how bravery sometimes looks nothing more than just showing up, even when it's uncomfortable. We talked about loss, we talked about violence, we talked about fear, growth, and the quiet courage it takes to keep moving forward, whether it's leaving a dangerous relationship, demanding justice, or simply walking into a store without the armor you used to rely on. So, If anything in today's episode hits close to home, especially when it comes to domestic violence or emotional abuse, please know that there is help. Help is available and you deserve safety. Again, National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-799-SAFE. If you don't have all the answers, you just have to take the first step. Again, you guys, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening with an open heart, for holding space for both the absurd and the painful, and for coming back each week after week. If this episode resonated with you, please share it, rate it, talk about it. These stories matter, and so do the conversations that they spark. Until next time, guys, be gentle with yourself, trust your instincts, and remember, growth doesn't have to be loud to be powerful. All right, that wraps it. Thanks so much, guys. I'll see you next week. Okay, love you. Bye. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. The facts are fuzzy. Our stories and opinions are just that, stories and opinions, not meant to be taken as professional advice.